Welcome to the Snap Society. I'm Jamie Larson, and today we have with us Lexi Vonberg, and she is the founder and editor of Lemonade and Lenses, the magazine. And I'm just so excited to have you on, Lexi. Thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. I'm really excited.
Yeah, so let me just tell you a little bit about Lexi. She just made a move to Kentucky to live in the country, and she's been in the business for 6 years, and she photographs weddings and seniors. And so right now what we wanted to talk about, I just wanted to kind of pick her brain about getting published and how you get your name out there and how you get your work out there, because it is tough with all of the photographers out there to sort of stand out and get your work out there. So that's what we're going to talk about today with Lexi. So thank you so much for being willing to share with us.
No problem. I'm hoping some people pick up a couple tips and learn something.
Absolutely. Okay, so just tell us, where do we start? Where do we start with trying to get our name out there or trying to get our work out there?
Well, I think a good place to start is to kind of put the idea of being published or featured aside and just really, truthfully, shoot for yourself. Because that's when you're going to create your best work, and then that's the work that's going to stand out among everybody else's.
Yeah, I think that's really good. When we are thinking of trying to get our work published, so we've got a few sessions in there that are pretty amazing that we think, oh, this work is just my best work and I want to submit it somewhere. How do we go about doing that?
Well, I think a good place to start is to really look into all the different publications and blogs out there, because there are really hundreds and hundreds, and there's different styles and different niches. And I think it's really important for you to get out there and kind of view them all and find a couple, 5 to 7, that really kind of match your style, because ultimately you're not going to want to submit something to a magazine or a blog that just doesn't really match your style, because they're not going to want to feature it. So a good place to start is just kind of look around, at a couple different, read through their blogs, get their magazines, flip through, see what type of features they like, what type of images they like, and just really kind of get to know them a little bit. And then I also think it's really important to become active on their social media sites as well. Like their Facebook page, their Instagram, going on the blog and commenting, because it kind of helps your name stand out. And so the editor or the person who's running it will kind of see your name and kind of get to know you as well, and that's kind of a good step to do before you even think about submitting.
Yeah. I've had a lot of people that I've been mentoring lately, and they'll just sort of share with me their frustrations. They've been submitting and they're not seeing their work. And so what would you say to that person who is struggling with that?
From a blog standpoint, I receive hundreds and hundreds of submissions, and I turn down, a ton of beautiful submissions. In reality, there's only 30 days in a month. And if I receive, let's say, 1,000 submissions, I can only pick 30, because I only feature, a session once every day, excluding Sunday. And it's kind of the same for most blogs. They might feature, 1, 2, or 3 sessions a day, but there's only so many days on the calendar, and they have so many sessions sent in. Just because you're declined doesn't mean your session wasn't a good fit. They might have something similar lined up already. They just might be receiving way too many submissions of that type. So it's kind of, you just have to keep trying and trying again.
Yeah, and that's what I tell people. This is not a science, it's an art. And so just keep at it, keep going, keep trying, and putting it in there, not to quit after the first week. It's hard when you get rejected, right? It is. Who wants to keep doing it? But that's kind of what you have to do.
It kind of stings you, and I've been declined. I've been featured before. I've kind of seen both ends of the spectrum, but I've declined beautiful sessions, and it just might be something as simple as I have already 3 senior shoots lined up for that week. I just can't feature anymore because we're an all niche publication. But it's just kind of don't let it discourage you, and just keep trying again. It doesn't necessarily mean your work is horrible.
Yeah, and you and I were talking before this, and we were talking about how you have so many people contacting you that you can't respond to everybody. So unfortunately, if it's just because you have something similar already, you can't respond to them and say, well, sorry, we loved it, we already have something similar. So just keeping in mind, I think people just need to keep in mind that might be the only reason. And so to submit somewhere else or to continue submitting other work to the same place. So keep moving forward. But what would you say mistakes are that you see? You probably see a ton of mistakes in submitting.
Yeah, I think some of the most common mistakes are people not reading the directions on how to submit. I will say most publications and blogs have a website that lists out their submission requirements. And most commonly for blogs, they'll tell you which size they want their picture size to. And I will say about probably 40% of all the submissions that I get, they're not sized correctly.
Really?
Like, so for example, I know we'll ask for blog pictures to be sized to 900 pixels wide. And we'll get people sending in 600 pixels, 300, 1500. And the truth is, if it's not sized correctly, I can't even feature it on our blog because that's the width of our blog. And it's not really my job to go and resize your pictures. It's your job. That's why I list it out. So that is probably the biggest mistake I see people make.
So if you see somebody that has great work, but they did not size it right, are you just like, okay, they're out? Or do you contact them and say, we need it sized correctly?
I just decline it. Unfortunately, I mean, I go through hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of submissions a month. I really don't have time to hold a spot for someone on our calendar and then remember that they're going to email back or check in with them. It's all listed out plain as day on our website what the size needed. Sadly, if it's not sent in right, it's just an automatic decline. I
think that's so good to remember. This is something that we learn when we're in elementary school that I'm trying to teach my son right now is pay attention to directions. And so I think that's so true. I mean, you can't go through all these different things, so you just need to do it right. Are there any other mistakes that people commonly make?
I'll have people that will send in too few images. So like on our website, ask for at least 15. I personally don't feel like a submission is strong enough unless it has 15 images. And I'll get people that'll send in like 8 or 10 or 12. And unfortunately, I'll decline those. And then I think it asks for no more than 40 images. And I'll have some people that will send in like 200. And I just don't have the time to go through and narrow those down.
Wow. So, yeah, I mean, you're so busy.
It just goes... Oh, yeah. But yeah, again, it just goes back to reading the directions. I mean, they're all listed out there on most, blog sites, and they're there for a reason. So just, be respectful, read through them, make sure, your submission follows the directions, and you'll be better than 50% of the people who submit.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, I love that. That's a great tip. Okay. And since you do have so many people that are submitting their work, if we want to submit our work and we want to get published, do you have any tips on how we can stand out from the crowd?
I think a big thing that a lot of people don't think about is that from a publisher standpoint or a blogger standpoint is we look at a session as a whole. We don't just look at 1 or 2 or 3 pictures. So when you're submitting your session, keep in mind we're wanting to feature something that grabs our readers' attention in the beginning and pulls them all through the session. We love a variety in portraits. We're not looking for just that typical, 3/4 body headshots. We want different angles, different crops. I personally love detailed shots. I like to see probably about 50-50, so like 50% detailed shots and 50% portraits. And I also look for something that's just unique. I think in this day and age with so many blogs and publications, everyone's going through and looking at all these beautiful shoots and then trying to create something similar or getting inspired off of that. And it kind of goes back to what I said in the beginning is kind of put everything aside and just go out and shoot for yourself because then your heart and soul will be in it and it'll truly stand out. Right.
Yeah, I love that. I wouldn't have even thought to do that many detail pictures. I mean, for a wedding I would, but not necessarily for a senior shoot or a children's shoot. So that's a really good point. I love that I get to pick your brain and ask all these questions and find out, get inside your head. So what about, out of all the things that you are looking for, like what, as an editor, I know you're for Lemonade and Lenses. We've got a lot of editors out there. What are editors looking for?
Really just something unique and different because, again, there's just so many blogs and publications out there. It's really hard to find something that's different this day and age because, in reality, everything's been done. But just something that's different and that you can just tell someone really put their heart and soul into putting together and it really meant something to them. like, again, just, putting aside all the publications and all the inspiration and Pinterest and Facebook and Instagram, and just, sitting down and truly putting something together that inspires you, whether it's a color or texture or movement or a dress or a person, just something that's really you, because I think those truly stand out above all the other, big, exquisite, styled shoots and stuff.
Yes. And before we were on air, we were talking about how a lot of people will have 5 great images, but when you're asking for 20, if there's only 5 and the rest of it 15 are not, excellent or really stand out, then you're not going to feature them. You can't just have a handful out of the entire session. So I think that's a really good point too.
Yeah, when we're looking at everything for a magazine and for a blog, we're looking at the session as a whole, not just as 1 or 2 or 3 pictures. So, if you have a couple of great pictures, that's awesome, but again, we're wanting something that grabs our reader's attention in the beginning and kind of pulls them through and tells a story or has a flow to it, and that, all the images, they don't have to be, cover shots, but they have to be a variety and different and something that's going to pull you through the whole session.
So I'm looking, I was looking on your magazine, and you can submit, a picture or 2, and I think you do only 1, actually. Is it only 1 that you submit? Whereas for the blog, you're submitting like 20 pictures. How would you pick one of your pictures for that magazine submission?
Well, if it's for the cover contest, I think it's in any cover contest. I know there's a couple magazines out there that do that. Keep in mind of the cover of that magazine. So it would be a good idea to kind of go back and look at the past covers and see what type of images that magazine likes. Keep in mind of what's going to be on the cover. For us personally, we just have our logo at the top. But okay. so keep in mind that we need to be able to put our logo on the top. So I think a lot of people will send in pictures that have, like for example, trees above the top of the picture, and it goes from like white background to dark tree. Well, that's not going to hold text really well over it. So it's kind of good to keep in mind, when you're sending a picture in for a cover, we need to be able to put our logo on the top. Versus if you're sending it in for another magazine, be aware of what they're deciding to put on the cover. If they're wanting to put more text and more on their cover, they're probably going to need a more simple image. So it's just kind of good to do your homework, look at past magazine covers to see what's worked, what hasn't, and almost kind of envision your image as that magazine cover and kind of think in your mind, really, would this work or not?
That's probably my biggest takeaway from this whole talk, is that if you want to get submitted, figure out where you want to get submitted and then really study that. And, the work that you think is really stand out, submit it and submit it correctly, because people do not have time to redo things. Yes. So I think that's a great tip. It's something small, but it's actually a really big deal that I think people overlook.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah,
definitely. Like I said, we probably about half of our submissions sent in are not sized correctly or doesn't have the correct number of images. Just something really tiny that, would have made it all that better. Because you never know. I mean, like, that's the first thing I do is I check the size. I don't even look at the, any of the pictures unless they're sized correctly. Because I'll sit down, every 2 weeks and go through, between 400 to 600 submissions. Yeah, I got to go kind of quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. Well, Lexi, thank you so much. Do you have any other last tips that you want to share with us before we're done here?
Yeah, I mean, for the people out there who haven't submitted that are scared, you never know until you try. Don't get discouraged if you get declined. I mean, everybody, even the top photographers you admire and look up to have been declined. We've all been there. But you'll never know until you try. Just take the time, find a couple of good places that fit your style and that you think your work would be a good fit for. Be part of their community, kind of get to know them. And then just make sure you're submitting correctly and, maybe take a submission and sit on it for a day. Maybe get it all ready, put it in the folder, and then sleep on it. And then go back the next morning and just double check again. Make sure you think your images are good and they're strong enough, and just go for it, because you never know until you try.
That's awesome. I love that advice. That's a great takeaway. Well, Lexi, thank you so much for joining us here at the Snap Society, and make sure that you go check out Lemonade and Lenses and their Facebook page, Instagram, their website, and their magazine is absolutely beautiful. So thank you so much for your time, Lexi, and thank you everybody for watching the Snap Society, where everything clicks.